and welcome. It's another day here in Frankfurt, IMEX 2025, and with Gorazd we have a wonderful friend of ours sitting here with us, Tahira Endean. Thank
Hi, Jan.
you for being here and taking your time. I know you've been extremely busy.
220 sessions.
There you go. The content in the other hall is amazing. And the speakers we've had these days here on Ljubljana Talks were just, I think, beyond of what we expected. There were so many topics we covered. Of course, we'll touch on some of those also during this Ljubljana Talks. But let's go first to the big news.
Yes.
Very recently, your book, Intentional Event Design.
No.
No?
That's my first book.
That's
but we
your
can
first-
talk about that. Let's talk about that. So
Joy.
I wrote Intentional Event Design in 2017. And then I updated it right after the pandemic. I didn't even change it because I realized
Okay.
it was actually a really good book. I added 8 pages of lessons from the pandemic, and it's being used to teach at NYU and SDSU.
I remember that. I remember
yes,
that.
which is great. And then, a follow-up book.
Oh, okay.
Much smaller, much more storytelling, and so many Slovenia stories in our KPIs.
I know.
Yeah.
I was honored to find myself in that book. So you see. But tell us, what is the message that you want to get across?
So our KPI is joy. The subtitle of it is how live events catalyze happiness, productivity, and trust. At the end of the day, every time you come to an event, every time you host an event, every time an organization spends hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars on an event, they want people to enjoy it. Yet, we use metrics like numbers or, dollars raised, and those are important. But what's more important is how people leave your event feeling and how they feel through the narrative arc of your event. And so really the book is about how do we understand that everybody who arrives is a human. We bring all of our humanness with us. We bring all of our family at home, our work challenges, and our presence at the event. And so we need to create experiences that really make the most of that in the short time that people are together with us so that they want to return. Yeah.
Here, actually, you're talking about joy or happiness. How joyful was your process of creating this amazing program at IMEX? That's my first question, and then I have another one.
Okay, very joyful. So I work on the program all year. And so people say, how do you know? And I listen all year to people. We don't just sit down in a month before the event and whip out some speakers. We're always talking and iterating and listening to what industry needs from us and working around different sort of thematics is how we build our tracks. And then, but the tracks are not equal. We don't need to have the same amount of experience design as we have design matters, as we have well-being, as an example. So we really just think about what do people want to learn. And what we're seeing is that every session has been packed. So clearly we are tapping into some, both excellent speakers, but also tapping into what the industry needs. So, this show is the biggest it's ever been on the exhibit side. It's the most buyers we've had at any show ever in Frankfurt. And we also have the most people bums in seats at our education we've ever had. So it's great. It's having some fun.
Congrats.
Thank you.
But what is your definition of a great speaker? What would you say? I mean, we have our own idea about it. We met with some of them, but what is something which sparked great sparks in your eyes, I would say?
A great speaker has a good message that they're willing to share without self-promotion, and it has to fit. I'm introduced to so many people that are truly great speakers that we don't have at IMEX because it's not the right topic at the right time. And a good example of that is we don't really have a lot of speakers who are talking about sales specifically because the people who are selling are on this side selling. So they're not going to get sales education per se. It wouldn't make any sense. So, but we also, have the range where, yesterday we had the tough talks. And so, we talked about navigating challenges, including perimenopause and how to become an adaptable how do you become an adaptable, resilient man in a society where it's changing, right?
Yeah.
But people willing to just sit down and talk about those things. And we don't have it's not a number. It's not, if 2 people come and feel that they left this show with good information, then we've done the right thing. So it's part art, part science, really.
Mm-hmm. You opened a lot of taboos, I would say, this year. And that's really cool, I would say.
Yeah.
But coming back, how we can measure happiness or joy? This is my question I want to ask, because happy participants, this is what we are all looking for, and we all have some ideas, but is there any metrics or how we can touch this measurement side of the happiness or joy?
There's a lot of ways that we can measure engagement. So we can do it, scientifically. So, with groups like Zenis, who are, so we have various areas of the show where we're measuring engagement, and it can be measured at different levels. It can be measured at the level of when people are talking, how people are responding. We don't use it so much for that. We tend to use it more with our sponsor activations at this show, but we have used it also in sessions in the past. You can do live surveying. We can do, honestly, you can just look around and you can feel the buzz in the air. But one of the things to remember about joy and happiness, and particularly with conferences and education sessions, not as much as a trade show, is that you can't feel joy if you haven't known sorrow. You can't go through, if our flat line or our baseline was always joy, that's just not very practical as a human.
It's not working,
right? So it's really, we have to build in a narrative arc, right? So you have to build in, what do people feel when they enter? And, coming into somewhere, the more information that you have, the more comfortable you're going to be, the more you're going to be able to have your mind opened up to feel joy, to feel a sense of connection to other people, which is where joy comes from. As soon as you don't have a good travel experience, you don't have a good check-in, you can't find registration, anything that's going to cause anxiety.
Describe such thinking at the beginning of your book, I think so.
Yeah, so that was I had a terrible experience at a conference that was actually focused on well-being, which was really interesting. But it's
well-being,
right? But it's about thinking about how people are going to go through your whole experience and creating those moments that are going to offer some introspection, some connection, some, as we walk through somewhere like IMEX, anybody who's been in the industry for more than a minute, you're hugging people along the way, you're smiling at people, you're handshaking, you're introducing people to other people. Those are going to be the things that are going to be that memorable of joy. But even if we look at, you go back to the history of the history of the handshake was, you have to hold this. You hold this. You go like this, right? So when we were shaking someone's hand, we were also feeling their arm for weapons. So, so there's a lot of history that goes into how people connect. We don't do that anymore, but it's, but we do have that, you look someone in the eye, you have a conversation, and...
But there are many rituals, such as the handshake, that have a security element in them. How you pour a drink, how you behave, how you sit, how you walk, how you design steps in medieval castles, for example.
Yes.
If we talk about the events industry today, in your book, there is an example which I think I feel joy when I think of it. That's an event that we did with Sight. Right after the pandemic, it was a great event, and it's also described in the book, and I'm really happy because it's such a true document. It was really one of those things that you can see how much we needed that human touch.
And I write about that particular event a lot in the book. So, with the Sight Incentive Summit Europe coming to Slovenia, it took us 3 years because we started planning it.
And it's a relatively small event if you think about it.
Yeah. It's a small event, but we had to keep planning it. I changed jobs. Some of the planning committee changed jobs. The leadership changed, but at the end of the day, it was still about finding what's that true, authentic sense of Slovenia, and we did that. And it wasn't all friendship and roses and, things being thrown. I mean, you took a lot of risks with that event and, showed a true Ljubljana of a social, environmental governance, and took people into risky places. We didn't have sunshine the whole time, but we had a double rainbow after a day of rain.
Exactly. I think that was kind of a telling. It started with hail, if you remember.
Yes.
We got on a bus, all of a sudden hail was, we were like, it was the end of the world for a moment. And then we got to Bled and a double rainbow appeared and we went to the other. It was really, really nice. The video is still online. It's still there. And
should be.
And it's actually interesting because people keep coming back remembering that event. It was very memorable. I think it was joy, with everybody to have that kind of a connection and be live
and to have deeper conversations.
Exactly.
So we did, I did a keynote and then we walked and talked, right? So we did all of it was a well-designed event, and it was, by that time I'd left, so I can't even take credit for the good design. But it was a well-designed event. We had the keynote and then, do you remember we all walked and talked, so now we're out in nature, we have some fresh air, small groups sat down and had coffee in the cafes, and we had important topics to consider as we were doing that.
I think you can take a lot of credit for that event. As you said, we've been preparing it for so long. It was so well prepared. It was polished. It was designed. It had all these event design elements and innovative elements, the unconferencing concepts and all that, as you were saying. Yeah. The whole experience design was unique, taking people into the town hall. It was a really memorable event. And I kind of go, I'm very proud of that event and I'm very happy we did it together. Now, if I go from that mental state just after COVID and the world opening up and everybody really being happy to see each other, and I go to today. With Gorazd, we've been doing these talk shows for quite a while now, and we kind of feel the pulse on the issues that are of relevance. Of course, you're the curator of many of the topics at IMEX, but there's one that we kind of really felt this year, and that is personal well-being, the mental health, this is such an important topic, and we think it's really relevant. How do you feel it resonated at this IMEX?
So I think it's one of the things we've really been focusing on for a long time is, again, understanding the whole human shows up. And so there's a lot of touch points through the show. So we're sitting right across from these minus 45 dB workspaces, which is a quiet workspace when somebody's like, I can't focus on my next meeting because I need to answer this email or finish this small proposal or do whatever I need to do to take a moment. So that's work related. They can go and do that. We have an incredible well-being room upstairs that has programming through the day so people can do a singing bowl meditation or some Qigong or some stretching. And it's a gorgeous experience just to take. I always go up. I've been going to our well-being rooms long before I worked at the show, just to get a little mental, 15 minutes. You can come out as a slightly new human and be able to go back into your meetings more refreshed. Introducing the Tough Talks, which we did last year, which is very, deep mental health, closed door, Chatham House rules conversations. And those we're doing based on really the speakers that we know who are coming to us and saying, so for example, we had Karen Bollinger and Mariska Kestelou have done 3 sessions on grief. Well, they have both lost their husbands to brain cancer. They both went through a natural grieving process with that. But one of the things that they both found as leaders and as women was that there wasn't a lot of resources for how does your manager manage somebody going through grief? How do your leaders learn how to not walk around tippy toes when it's grief? And so they've done several sessions now on that. But that was, they said, here's a topic we're interested in. You said, you're both interested in this topic. Would you speak about it together? With the, mental health. Last year was men, mental health and suicide. This year is about resilience and adaptivity. And again, it's because we know the people's personal stories that they're willing to be vulnerable to share. We have one of our IMEX, we have a mental health first aiders program at IMEX. So we have one of our mental health first aiders is always in the room as well. So if somebody does leave, we have somebody who can make sure that they're okay because they're tough topics. And again, the metric wasn't, like, how lucky am I to say I have this crazy idea to talk about this very deep subject at this large trade show and have a CEO who says, great, who's going to talk about it? And there's like never any hesitation because we understand that we are in a very tough industry and it's full of humans. And so we need to, if we can give space to people to talk about it, we have a lot of perimenopause and menopause because, again, look around. Yep. A lot of women going through that in our industry.
70% probably, or even more.
Right? And at some point, if they're not already in it, they're going to be in it. And so, and then we also have a lot of, rising talent. And so how can we help nurture them as well? And so a lot of effort also going into that space. So, but it's really important to talk about and be open to talking about those things, we think. So.
To me, Tahira, it seems like you're closing the circle of sustainability. So from environmental part, which is of course important, we are now getting into the final, I would say, let's say so, originality part of it, and that's really amazing. But how does it feel to you? What is happening with sustainable movement and everything? What was really on the top of the agenda for the last 10 years, but now suddenly it feels like it's not the topic anymore. Yeah.
So I have a lot of feelings about this topic.
Yeah.
So the first time that I wrote green meeting guidelines was with the Greater Vancouver Regional District, the Vancouver Convention Centre, MPI, at the time ISIS, now ILEA, WAM, the Association Exhibition Managers, 1995. I've sat, so I've been through two major rounds of the Event Industry Council. I've been through, sat through both of their, been on the committees through both of their massive sustainability initiatives for the industry. When they rewrote the CMP guidelines, the 9th edition, it was focused on having a core of sustainable thinking at it through every single chapter. I, contributed and reviewed most of that book. So there's work that's been going on across the industry for a long, long time. Certainly Europe and the European continent in general is well ahead of a lot of North America right now, especially on actually having guidelines that need to be met. And ESG, environmental social governance, is very, it's just has to be a core part of how we're doing business because there's a regulation for every business. So I might be the smallest event management company on the planet, but my client, I'm hoping, is going to be a very large company, and that large company is going to have ESG submissions that they have to make, and so their events also have to meet that. So it's really important, I think, that it's that we're all thinking about, even, somebody says that, they come in here and they're like, look at all of these giant booths, like what happens? Well, most of these booths go into storage and come back in an iterative form. They're not throwing these away. So and with IMEX, it's been a core since the beginning. And, there's been, all of the exhibitors can submit and be part of the green meeting stand, I'm going to get the terminology wrong, but we do have essentially a green stand program. Sorry, Roger. But it's, it is something that we're very much on the journey with the industry and helping to support and lead the way. And the metrics are unbelievable that we have. So the reports are on the website, but it's the waste diversion.
We need to fight on. Huh? We need to fight on.
Yes.
For that. Listening to you, I can see sparks in your eyes about everything what you're saying, and since we have also a lot of younger viewers of our show, can you tell us more about your career, just to impress them a little bit, give them the idea why it's cool to work in our industry?
Well, it is cool to work in our industry.
Yeah.
We're so lucky. Yeah. Somebody said yesterday, we are in the business of making humans connections. Who gets to say that?
it was a beautiful example that John made.
Yes. You know, that from the gala last night and John on the train, but it is what we get to do. And so, you know, I was a hairstylist. I loved being a hairstylist. It was the most amazing career I wanted to do since I was 6 years old. When I was 26, I had to have major surgery on both my arms. And at the end of those, the surgeon said, "You will never cut hair again." So I went home and I cried for 2 days. It was very bad. My then boyfriend was just like, "It's okay, you know, we'll get through this. I love you." And my literal response was like, "Does it matter?" So the good news is we got past that. And so now it's been, you know, we've been together since 1989. So it's still good.
You got through it.
We got through it. So, but I went on, I did an event management diploma. I went to work, Claire Smith with the Vancouver Convention Centre as my practicum leader. She got me involved in MPI at a very early stage in my career. And then I have worked, a lot of people go into the industry and they go on sort of one trajectory, one path. So I've worked as a PCO, so professional convention organizer. So worked on a lot of medical conferences. I know a lot about herpes and AIDS and dermatology. And from there, when I wanted to do something more creative, I started working at a DMC. And from there, I went on to an incentive agency. That was, you know, an amazing opportunity to see a lot of the world, experience a lot of the world, which is, you know, that is an incredible opportunity that we get to have. I went back to being a DMC, creative director at a DMC. One of the hardest jobs in the industry, one of the most undervalued areas, but also, you know, I got to take 140 people to a glacier for lunch by helicopter.
Extremely rewarding, yeah.
You know, you get to do amazing things as a DMC because you're so focused on showing off the best of your region. You know, and my region was Whistler to Banff. So, you know, Vancouver and like these amazing places. And you get to
all over.
Everywhere, you know, I mean, phenomenal. And when I left that, actually went into technology for a while. So I did spend some time with, and I was with IMEX, I've been a buyer. I built the mobile app. I've been an exhibitor. I've been a speaker. So when I started here, I sort of had done everything, but I planned a technology conference for our government for British Columbia for 3 years, which we grew, tripled in size, which I think actually really laid the groundwork for showing off all of the technology we have in British Columbia, which allowed Web Summit, which is in Vancouver next week, to consider Vancouver seriously because
Web Summit is now in Vancouver.
Yes.
Web Summit is now in Vancouver,
Yeah, so they'll be there.
It was confirmed not that long ago.
This is the first year, and I think they're scheduled to be there for at least 3 years. Yeah. But we really I think that, you know, showed that we have quantum and we have, you know,
Vancouver is an amazing destination.
I saw atoms being split. I mean, come on, who gets to go to work and see an atom being split?
There you go.
Right, and then I worked at Site as the head of events and got to do incredible, again, world travel and amazing things. And now here I am with all of the world in front of me.
It's so valuable because we do have quite a few students. So Ljubljana Talks has been incorporated into programs at some of the faculties. Okay. So because it's sometimes easier to watch, you know, the younger generation, they just like podcasts. They listen to them on the go, and these are kind of handy to give those, you know, we would say teasers.
Well, you know, I started teaching again, and but instead of being in the classroom now, it's all, you know, mostly asynchronous learning. And so I am exactly pulling in a lot of podcasts, a lot of different ways for people to learn. I can't teach somebody to be an event designer in 30 hours, but I can sure give them a lot of tools to give them an amazing base. And it's so fun to see them just absorb and to think about, wow, an event is like telling a story. You know, we can create a narrative arc, and we can touch people's senses, and we can create change for people. And oh my gosh, it's so rewarding to be teaching. And to
create an access to all of this knowledge that usually could only be found at a conference or a congress is now all out there. It's beautiful. Yeah. Before we go to the fire round questions, because our time flies, you know.
I talk a lot.
I know. But there is always more questions. But there's two questions I have to ask, because I knew he's going to walk up here. He does that every time that we are running over time. The first question is, where can people get your books?
Amazon. Around
Amazon.
the world, yes.
Excellent. My second question, because we spoke about the past, let's talk about future. IMEX America.
Here we go.
What's coming?
So IMEX America, I mean, the program is honestly, it's almost already built. People are like, oh, can I submit something? I'm like, you could, but it's built. So we will be focusing on our Impact 2.0, activating the future. So keeping with our same talking point, we will be very similar tracks to what we have this time. So experience design, we'll be bringing in a community track, looking at well-being still, leadership and culture. So again, really a wide range of professional development and personal development for people will be available there.
I have so many questions here I want to ask before we go to far questions. First of all, is there something like Canadian creativity? It seems like you are like Danish guys here in Europe, you know? All the crazy stuff are coming from your country, you know, like C2 conference now. Is there something? What is the reason for that?
Clearly, it's the water. Do you know, I think anytime that you have a country that is smaller and has to fight harder to, stand on a world stage, we work harder to be innovative. Exactly. It's like Slovenia, which is actually one of my favorite countries in the world.
Thanks a lot.
Can we make that as a quote?
Yes, absolutely. Honestly, Slovenia it fascinates me as a country because you're in an 1100-year-old castle that is so digitally forward that I got there on my funicular, and then I can see a gorgeous, photo display that is so modern and so fresh, and then you go out 5 minutes away and you're in this most amazing countryside, and out at Burdo, and then going to Bled, and it was mind-boggling how beautiful and how clean. And can I tell the story? Can I tell the story of the Moby? So, the last day that my daughter was in Slovenia with us, I took her to the airport. The one thing that wasn't working was my phone was not necessarily getting the data that I needed all the time, but that's a small detail. So I dropped my daughter off at the airport, who then as soon as I get back into town, I see that her flight has been canceled. So I need to go back and get her, and I completely overshoot the airport because I'm a little anxious and I'm in an unfamiliar country. And so I know now I've gone too far, and so I take an exit up and I see a Moby Dick pub. And I go into the parking lot, I see they have Wi-Fi. I go into the pub, and a very nice young man says, "Can I help you?" And I said, "I'm actually that really horrible customer that has just come in to use your Wi-Fi because," I said, "my daughter's flight has just been canceled. I know I've overshot the airport, and I just want to let her know that I'm on my way." And he said, "Well, the music just went down, which means our Wi-Fi just went down." He said, "But it's okay." He said, "You're 10 minutes from the airport. It's only 2 exits back, and I'm going to hotspot you to my phone so that you can let her know you're on your way." It was so nice.
Nice.
So, but that was the kind of hospitality that we truly experienced throughout the entire stay. So, it was just a really magical experience.
Jan, one more. Sorry, I need to ask. I have so many questions. In designing events, does size matters?
No.
Okay. Can you elaborate this a little bit? Not too long,
Final question.
Okay, no. I give it to you. Okay, sorry.
Basically, you said smaller, big event.
No, this is a super huge event, but what if something small you organize? So what is your idea about it?
I think it doesn't matter if your event is 15 people or 15,000 people. At the end of the day, you're not going to come to IMEX and meet 15,000 people. You're going to come to an IMEX and you're going to meet the 30 to 100 to 150, which is sort of our maximum community size that we can really have within an event. And you're going to have connections with those people, and that's going to be you're going to meet serendipitously or by design the people that you should be meeting at any point in time. And we need to, as event designers, just create the opportunities where people can find those connections. So whether it's personal introductions, or whether it's meetings, or whether it's creating education spaces where people can feel comfortable asking questions and connecting.
As you can see, we're super relaxed around you, because
Yes.
otherwise we're more structured, I would say, or we're just overshooting here the time. So now we're going to the fire questions, and the first one is going to be easy. Fire or ice?
Fire.
Running or swimming?
Oh, running.
Okay. One more, Jan.
Apple or pineapple?
Apple.
Tahira, thanks for being our guest. That was amazing, Ljubljana Talk. What should I say? Stay tuned. We are coming back in a few minutes. And thanks a lot once again.
Thanks for having me.